From the newsroom of the Bryan College Station Eagle, this is the Brazos Sports Prepscast. And now, the Eagle High School sports team, Alex Miller and Jake Weiss.
What's going on, everyone? You're listening to the Brazos Sports Prepscast, a podcast about high school football here in the Brazos Valley. I'm Alex Miller from the Eagle, joined always by Jake Weiss, the Eagles high school sports reporter. Jake, how's it going today?
Hey, I'm doing good, Alex. I gotta say, before we get into it, I'm really glad that my game against the game I went to was the only one that didn't get delayed. So I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, let's all do a little not rain dance or not lightning dance, I should say, this week, because I don't think anybody wants to wait 2.5 hours to play a football game again.
Nope.
So hopefully the lightning's gone as we enter week 3 of the Texas high school football season. Later in the podcast, we'll have Scott Clendenin, the voice of the College Station Cougars, join us to talk a little Cougar football ahead of their big game against Temple. But first, Jake, let's recap some action from the other local teams from last week. You know, had some serious delays, but lightning struck fast for the College Station schools, and unfortunately for the Bryan teams, they just weren't able to finish off their games and get some key wins. Jake, we'll start with your game. You were at Bryan and Huntsville. Huntsville, of course, got the win over the Vikings 21-14 over at Bowers Stadium. Jake, what'd you make of the Vikings' loss to the Hornets on Friday?
Yeah, really, Huntsville was just able to run the ball kind of at ease right from the get-go. Just ran kind of all over the defense. Bryan, I give credit to Bryan, Malcolm Gooden, Tyson Turner. They all made some big plays, especially in that third quarter. It was 14-0 going into halftime. Malcolm ran, I think, a 57-yard touchdown, and then he had a passing touchdown to Tyson Turner. I think it was like an 11-yard one to tie it up. But then again in the fourth quarter, the offense kind of stalled out a little bit, and Huntsville just kind of ran with ease, and they ended up punching it in to pick up the win. So I guess really for me, biggest things were defense has got to get a little better with the run game. Offense started off slow. Credit to them, they picked it up. But I'm sure for them, they kind of want to play 4 quarters all the way through because really they had one really good quarter in the third. Fourth quarter, they moved the ball a little bit but couldn't find the end zone. So, yeah, I'd say those were 2 of the biggest things that I noticed last week.
Well, now comes a pretty stiff road test for the Vikings. They're going on the road to play Brenham. By the way, Brenham's Rylan Wooten. He was our player of the week, I believe, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He had 6 touchdowns. He contributed on every touchdown for them this week. They won 42-7, and I think he ran 4 in and he passed for 2. So.
Yeah, he had like almost 400 yards of offense. Yeah. So Danny Young's team, they got it. They're starting to get things rolling over there in the Pride Land over in Brenham. So if you're going over there, get there early for some Bluebell or something. But Bryan hoping to bounce back with a good win over the Brenham Cubs. Okay, A&M Consolidated, they were one of the teams like others that were affected by the lightning delay, but once it got started, it was pretty fast for the Tigers. Led 35-0 at halftime. Will Hargett 3 touchdown passes, 2 to Wesley Watson, 1 to Peyton Bjork. Keyshawn Thomas, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Carter Frank had a 50-yard kickoff return with less than a minute in the fourth quarter. We probably expected the Tigers to win that game handedly. It sounded like they had a pretty sound performance against a team from Mexico. Now, they got a solid test this week against Lufkin. I know Lufkin's not state-ranked, but Lufkin is always a really good team. And so Consol, they're going in their bye week next week. Just like College Station, bye week and then district starts. So this is a good game for the Tigers to close non-district play. Lufkin's 2-0. They beat Tyler Legacy and Nacogdoches. Some good old East Texas football going over there. Jake, I think you got a feature coming this week on a Consol player. And you're going to be over there at Tigerland Stadium this week, right?
Yeah, I will be. I'll be going out tomorrow. We're still figuring out the time, but I'll be talking with Mo Facchetti. He's a defensive back, senior defensive back. He's also the kicker as well. So if you ever, are at a game at Tigerland Stadium, you might hear his name called twice. So it's not you might be a little confused at first, but yeah, he's the kicker and he's also DB. So you got 2 chances to hear his name called.
Yeah, all-around playmaker for the Tigers. He's a guy that we mention pretty frequently on this show. He's pretty good for them. So be sure to check Jake's feature on Mo Fichetti and Friday's paper of the Eagle. The Rudder Rangers, I mean, they rallied hard, but just couldn't come away with a win over Salado. They lost 38-28. You know, Rudder much improved from week one in that pretty lopsided loss to Willis. Just couldn't close it out. Tied it up at 28 in the fourth quarter. But Salado scoring on consecutive possessions to win the game. You know, you wrote about Xavier Ramirez last week, and they really got that passing game going. And we know what kind of weapons they have on offense with guys like Jaquise Martin and Nate Figures and Kevin Holmes. It seems like that next step for this Rudder team to really get it rolling is just really holding it down on defense. That seems to be something that they're looking to really get going as well.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, they've got playmakers on offense. Xavier, if you didn't read the feature, I'll just kind of hit some of the high points real quick. Xavier, you know, he sat behind EJ for 2 years, really got to learn behind him. So, you know, Coach Izar talked to me a little bit about, hey, some of the things with Xavier are just kind of, hey, he's got such a strong arm. You just got to sometimes tell him to reel it in a little bit. Not every pass has to be the home run. But, yeah, I think the offense, I mean, like we saw last week, offense looks good. Just the defense has got to step up. But they are a young team, so I think as they go along, I feel like the defense will match the offense.
Well, Rudder, they're back at home this week. They host Elgin. Elgin's kind of sneaky there at 2-0. They got a good win over Lampasas in week 1. Came back with a shutout win over Austin Atkins last week. I think it was a shutout. Might be incorrect on that. You'll have to fact check me on it. But Jake, I think you're going to get a chance to talk with Nate Figures this week. Is that right?
Yeah, I am. Like you said, another one of those offensive weapons. Excited to talk to him. I think he had 6 or 8 catches, touchdown last week. So excited to get to talk with him this week.
Well, that's gonna lead us into our next segment, 3 games to watch, and this might be one of the best games in the whole area this week. And I'm talking about Allen Academy hosting St. Joe's Friday night at Baker Field. I mean, if you like six-man football, this really is the game for you. Because, I mean, this was a thriller last season. I got to go out there and watch it. St. Joe's battled back, won just a back-and-forth affair, 48-44 over Allen. I mean, it was a really good game. You know, Allen, last week, they were competitive against Bastrop Tribe. That's a really good team. They beat St. Joe's week 1. And Ethan Lucas had a great game. Rusty Lai McMurray and Kyle DuPont, I mean, they really got it going on offense. And so, you know, looking at the Rams, I mean, this was kind of the year they wanted to get back to that Allen standard that they had kind of built. And they've really got some pieces to do it. You know, St. Joe's last week rebounded with a pretty convincing win over Katy Faith West. You know, we talk about that great Allen offense, but they're going to have to stop Jackson Carey, who had a really good game last week. I think he had like 7 sacks, 16 tackles.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to be a pretty good game, I think, on Friday night.
Oh yeah, no rivalry game. I talked with Coach Castilleja before the season, and you know he said, hey, the last 4 years we've split this series 2-2. So I don't want to say this is a tiebreaker year because it's not like this is the last game or anything, but you know it's tied 2-2 right now, so pretty even series.
Yeah, you know, I think Allen Academy is the favorite in this one according to Six-Man Football's spreads. But, hey, history shows anything can happen in this game when it's a rivalry game. I definitely expect the stands to be packed. So, going to be a good one over there. Be sure to catch that if you've got some free time on Friday night. All right, we've talked about Navasota the last 2 weeks, and I'm really starting to wonder, like, is Navasota for real? Like, I mean, they're really coming on. I mean, up to number 7 in the 4A Division I rankings this week. They're going to have a really good test this week, though, hosting Belleville. I mean, if you know anything about Belleville, they're a rough, tough football, and they're going to make you earn a 48-minute win if you're going to beat them. So, definitely going to be a good game over there Friday night at Rattler Stadium. Jake, I think you caught up with Coach Dacus again after they beat Madisonville this week.
Yeah, I did, and pretty much all you said about Belleville, he pretty much reiterated. Tough matchup, but he also said, hey, when we made the schedule, that's what we want to do because it's going to help us once we hit district play and hopefully playoffs. So it's he designed it that way. And yeah, one of the guys he pointed out too, DeAndre Scott again, had a big game. They won that game last week against Madisonville, 27-21 in overtime. And DeAndre Scott had 3 of the touchdowns, including the game winner. So yeah, I just think, I'm like you said, are they for real? I mean, they're just reeling off win after win. It's pretty impressive so far. I'm real impressed.
Well, our last one, 3 games to watch. Snook going to Anderson Shiro on Friday night. Got a Brazos Valley versus Brazos Valley matchup over in Grimes County. The Owls, they bounced back with a win over Danbury, getting win number 1 on the board, and now they have their home opener against Snook. Snook, unfortunately, their game got canned in the middle of the first quarter last week against Brazos Christian due to all the storms and lightning. So, Anderson Shiro, they're a team that missed the playoffs last year. They're trying to get back there. Snook, they're trying to get it rolling. I mean, this is a good game for both of them. It's a cross classification game. Anderson Shiro up at 3A, Snook down in 2A. I mean, a win for either team could really go a long way, boosting some confidence as this season gets going.
Yeah, and Anderson Shiro, they just moved up to 3A. Is that right? They were in 2A last year, correct?
Yeah, maybe. I can't remember.
Okay, yeah, no, the point was, I was just saying, I think they're pretty evenly matched up because I think Anderson Shiro just moved up, but
yeah,
I can't remember for sure.
Well, that'll be a good game there over in Anderson, Texas. All right, that's going to do it for this segment of the podcast. Coming up next, we got a conversation with Scott Clendenin talking all things College Station Cougars. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brazos Sports Preps Cast. We're joined now by good friend of the show, Scott Clendenin, one of the voices of the College Station Cougars, alongside Tim Schnettler. Can't forget Tim, another good friend of the show. Scott, how are you today?
Doing great. Excited for this week. The season had a big bounce back last weekend, exactly what the Cougars needed to do. And, football, all 3 levels will be playing after this week. So, you're after Labor Day, the fall starts going, and this is the perfect time of year. So excited, just tired of delays. Want to see games start on time and run in the normal amount of time that we're out there at the field.
Yeah, of course the game delayed, just over 2.5 hours on Friday?
Yes.
What was the highlight of you waiting for the game to get started?
Probably it would have been Serena Williams winning her 3rd round match, but I was kind of watching that as the delay went along. So I don't know about really a highlight, but it was kind of interesting because all the games in the Brazos Valley were kind of in the same situation. So it wasn't like I could normally click over and listen to one of the other games. So really that was it, just try to bear through it. And I didn't know it was going to set the stage for such a long Saturday as well.
Yeah, of course, once they actually got to play College Station, they made pretty quick work of Fort Worth. Nolan Catholic won 52-7. This one seemed like it was about finishing for the Cougars on both sides of the ball. When you talk about being able to sustain drives and, get off the field on defense, Cougars forced 5 3-and-outs to start the game and then, got ahead by 5 scores in that first half. What did you kind of make of that game against Nolan Catholic for the Cougars?
Well, I thought that Arrington Maiden had a really good game, because he was able to finish. And I think that even though I don't know if it would have changed the outcome of Week 1 against Lucas Lovejoy, there were 3 times that the Cougars had a chance to put points on the scoreboard that they didn't finish drives. And I think that was a big emphasis for what the Cougars wanted to do this week. And then I also think that, they took Nolan Catholic out of what they wanted to do pretty early. Defensive pressure, took away the rushing attack, made them one-dimensional. And that's, if Coach Locklear can ever script what he wants to do and have it go perfectly according to the script, that was it. After having 101 plays run against them by Lucas Lovejoy, to make them one-dimensional and force them to pass certainly set the stage for such a big margin. And then it was kind of interesting that the second team gave a valiant effort trying to keep them off the scoreboard,
Right.
gave it that late touchdown.
And Scott, you kind of mentioned the offense there a little bit, and you brought up the first game as well. It's kind of curious, now that things are kind of getting settled a little more, when you look at the running backs and receivers, especially on offense for College Station, kind of what do you think about them as they get more playing time?
Well, I think that, Trevino was a guy that knew the system. And, even though he was going to be a complement to an all-state, all-American type guy and Marquise Collins, he was very familiar with it. I think, what Aiden Martinez-Brown has done is come in during the summer, really a guy that was probably expecting to be, JV, maybe called up at some point in time during the year, for him to really start to learn the offense and give them a compliment. I think that, even though they both have some speed to the outside and both are run hard between the tackles, he's going to break more tackles. He's just bigger. And I think that right there, the combination, we saw some zone read this last week, was a little bit different because Maidenwood keeping himself. He had 6 or 7 carries of his own, able to pick up some important yards. I think that when you get a quarterback that can balance that up, I think that that's one of the things that Jet Huff did last year, was his willingness to run a little bit more and not be one-dimensional, that he was going to drop back and only stay in the pocket all year long. I think that's a wrinkle that the Cougars will want to, put out there enough on film that people and coaches across this district will have to prepare for.
College Station's defense, they certainly improved from week 1 to week 2. Pretty salty unit on that side of the ball. What are you seeing from the Cougars on that side?
Well, I think I wouldn't be surprised if they're holding something back. I haven't really seen a lot of even fronts up there. They've mostly been in a 34 look and had, Chance Johnson as a linebacker, not really in where he's rushing a lot. They've been able to put some pressure on, especially last week, and they were able to pressure the quarterback. I think when it comes, a little bit later on, when they really need to get a pass rush, Chance Johnson, probably a guy that's going to go back in closer to the front three there. And maybe if it's not, him putting his hand on the ground, that's a guy that'll get after your quarterback. So for them to have some success last week and really take, Nolan Catholic out of what they wanted to do without having to really show their whole hand, I think it's important, because I think this week against Temple, you've got to be ready to go with everything you've got, just like when you get into a district play.
And that perfectly leads up to my final question. I wanted to ask about that Temple game. What do you think kind of is the key here? What do you kind of think about this matchup? And what does College Station kind of need to do this week to kind of get prepared for district play with the bye week coming up as well?
Well, I think that Temple played a lot better last week than they did the first week against McKinney. That was a 17-10 game. What Temple did do in that game is they had 4 times they turned them over on downs. McKinney had some drives that they didn't get anything out of it. Last week against Willis, who really took apart Bryan the week before, Rudder the week before, they got Lagway out of the game early. And they were only trailing for like 2 minutes in the game, and that's all they've trailed all year long. And I think that's the big key, is you've got to make them play a four-quarter game like McKinney did. Maybe get on top of them early and be able to control what they do. They've got a good quarterback in Rumfield. He's thrown for good yardage already this year, 378 yards, 4 touchdowns. Brundage, who ran for about 45, 50 yards in game 1, went for over 160 last week, but they haven't really scored with the rushing attack other than Rumfield getting 1 quarterback run in for a touchdown. They've mainly been doing it through the air. I think it's going to be a big test for the Cougars secondary. And everybody knows Temple's going to show up with some athletes. They've got guys that are already committed. York, their linebacker, is already committed to Baylor. Their two-way guy at Mitchell at defensive back and wide receivers, getting offers from all over the Big 12 and some of the SEC teams. This is a team that will show up with athletes, a lot like what you saw from Lovejoy, and you've got to be ready to match their athleticism.
Great measuring stick game for the Cougars. And if we know anything about College Station and Temple, they've had some really good battles in the last few years.
They sure did. When before Temple went back up to 6A, it was a really fun to see those games played against each other. And I think that the Cougars, after seeing Lovejoy, it's going to be hard to find teams that match their athleticism. Temple is one of those teams that can do that. They can line up 3 wide receivers out there that any of your defensive backs make a mistake, especially with Rumfeld at quarterback who, threw for 2,700 yards last year and few interceptions. He's going to find the guy that's open, and I think that'll be big that the Cougars, play good fundamental defense and don't have any breakdowns, because we saw what happened against Lovejoy when he had breakdowns in the secondary. Got a quarterback that can throw it over the top, receivers that can run under the ball. That can lead to big problems against the defense.
All right, well, Scott, before we let you go, where can fans tune in to catch the radio broadcast this Friday? At 7:30 p.m., by the way.
7:30 p.m., Maverick 100.9 FM. We'll be on at 7 o'clock. And then you can find us, on radioaggieland.com, all over the social media. We'll have the links up there. College Station Cougar social media will have links as well. But come on out. When you're playing Temple, you're going to have a good game. And this is really, like we talked about after Lucas Lovejoy. If they can show improvement and get to Temple and have a victory there, then that's kind of erase that game 1 problem. That's what they're looking to do this week.
All right, well, Scott, thanks for joining us. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the Brazos Sports Prepscast. Be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Be sure to check Doodle.com for all of our coverage of Brazos Valley football here this week. We'll see you